Ghana, a country in West Africa. It accounts for 35% of the global supply of cocoa. I've come to Ghana to delve deeper into its infinite world of cocoa. I'm here at the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana, which was established in 1938. Now, the whole purpose of the institute is to help cocoa farmers. So they have hundreds and hundreds of scientists looking at every aspect of cocoa. So they're looking at how to get the best possible yield, the life of the tree, how to help farmers grow the cocoa. They're looking at the best hybrids, so combining different varieties of cocoa to get the best end product. And of course, to create the perfect and ultimate end chocolate flavour. So many different varieties here at the Institute. This is actually a hybrid that we have here. And what they're doing is testing different combinations of different pods to get the best possible result. So yield, and we're also looking at the life of the tree.
Scientists saw that the Amazon having a better gestation period, having a better yield compared to the Amelonado. So we pick the two individuals from the different varieties with those abilities, and then we cross. When we cross, we hope that their offspring will possess that characteristic. So that series of selection and crossing gave way to the hybrid. And now we have the hybrid that has a gestation period from the first introduction, 8 years, to 18 months. This gives us over 3,000 kilograms on per hectare basis. Though the diseases are there, they are able to, withstand it to some extent, and that is why at the moment we recommend the hybrid for production. And this is what at the moment we give to farmers to produce.
You can see the pods, which are quite heavy, actually grow on the trunks and the heavier branches of the tree. The tree is quite short, so it's not a big tree. And this particular hybrid actually starts out green, and then as it ripens, it actually becomes yellow. It's roughly around 5 months from the flower being pollinated to a fully ripened pod that then is picked. In Ghana, there's 2 main production seasons, with the biggest one being towards the end of the year, which goes from October to roughly about March. And then there's a smaller season in which they pick the cocoa, which runs from about May till about August. The process of the cocoa pod starts with the flower bud, and then it opens, and only opens for about 4 days, in which it needs to be pollinated to produce a pod. Once a flower's been pollinated, we have what we call a set, and then when it gets slightly larger, we call it a churro, before it then grows into a fully developed pod. This absolutely stunning cocoa tree is a Trinitario hybrid. Now, the economic life of the tree is about 30 to 35 years. The tree will actually grow and stay alive for about 100 years, but the economic life as to when we can actually process enough beans to make a profit is about 30 to 35 years. After that time, the tree will be cut down and a new tree will be planted in its place. Now, for this particular hybrid, we can see the immature pods here. This one's purple and green. As this one completely ripens, it will be a bright, vibrant red, and the green part will actually be a bright yellow. We've got the ones that are all purple. As they ripen, we'll find that it'll be completely bright red. Here we have a beautifully ripe Trinitario hybrid. We can see the red colour on one side and a slightly yellow colour on the other. So when this started out growing, it would have been purple and a little bit of green here, which as it ripens, you can see those colours develop. Most cocoa pods have an average of 35 beans, but based on the size of this one, I think it'll have a few more. So you can see the husk is really quite thick. The beans themselves are actually inside the pulp. So if we take one here, we can actually taste it. It's really light and quite refreshing, but it doesn't have much flesh on it at all. And that's broken down during the fermentation process. The great thing about a hybrid is it's much less prone to disease, although there is still disease present in some cocoa plantations. Now here we have an example of black pod, which is a fungal disease which is present in Ghana. So we have that here. So to eliminate that, we simply remove the damaged pods from the tree and it won't actually spread. Here we have an example of the swirling shoot, which is a disease carried by a bug called the Millie Bug. Now the Millie Bug, once it actually feeds on an infected tree, if it goes to a healthy tree within 6 hours, it will then infect that healthy tree. The downside of this disease means that once the tree has the disease, it has to be removed completely to ensure that it doesn't actually spread. The first sign of the disease being present in the tree is actually the yellowing of the leaves. The next sign, you'll actually visually see it on the pods themselves, and then an acute system is actually the swelling here of the stem. So one of the steps that they're taking, there are several, is to actually plant barrier trees, which the disease will go into those barrier trees rather than penetrating into the actual plantation. They're also creating hybrids of cocoa that are more resistant to the disease, and eventually they hope to eradicate it completely. This is one of the great things about the Cocoa Research Institute here in Ghana, is trying to eliminate diseases such as this disease to ensure that farmers can grow a healthy cocoa tree. I'm here with Ossa on his cocoa farm in Ajaycrum in the eastern region of Ghana. Now we're standing in front of a young tree which is only 4 months old. So it's important for farmers not only to try different hybrids of trees, but also to plant younger trees so when the other trees get older, they've got fresh trees coming up. Now he has a marker here which indicates what variety of cocoa tree it is. Yeah. Now in a cocoa farm, it's important when the tree is this young that it's actually grown under a canopy, so it actually gives shade to the plant itself. Now Ossa has actually planted banana trees here, but plantain is another popular tree to plant. Also gives the farmer the option of selling produce from those trees as well. So the banana and the plantain are actually temporary cover when we have just younger cocoa trees. They do need a longer permanent cover, but it has to be by higher trees. There are trees such as local trees like Emily and Adung that offer permanent cover, which means that when the tree gets bigger, the plantain and the banana trees are going to have done their job, but they're no longer required. So we need those permanent cover trees to offer shade for the cocoa as it's growing. So Ossa's farm here, all the trees are really quite young. So at this stage, it's not profitable. He'll have to wait till the tree is about 10 years of age before it starts being economical for him. Now I'm here in the Oyoko community with one beautiful, really large plantation. We've got 5 hectares of cocoa trees. Now this is just the start of the main cocoa season here in Ghana, and I have Susanna with me here who actually owns this plantation. So the type of cocoa here that is typical for Ghana is once again a hybrid. Because this cocoa farm is so large, they actually cut the pods from the trees and they actually let them sit on the leaves for 3 days before they're collected for harvesting. And that process happens in the big season, which we're in now, every 3 days. Now the harvesters make this look really quite simple, but it's very important that you cut the pod correctly. You actually have to cut the pod as close to the pod as you can to leave what we call the cushion. If you cut the cushion off, you're losing the possibility of growing additional flowers. So flowers will actually flourish on the cushion area. So I've got examples here of both. So this is a wrongly cut pod. So you can see that part of the cushion here has actually come off. And this is a correctly cut pod where we've cut as close to the pod as possible. Now the flowers will only grow in 2 areas. That's why it's so important to maintain that cushion. We can see here the cushion, and that's where the flowers will actually grow. They don't actually grow on the trunk themselves. The other place they do grow is when a leaf drops, and it's called a leaf scar. So where the leaf has left the tree, it leaves an opening there where the flowers will blossom. Now that we've got all the pods together, the next stage is to actually cut down some plantain leaves, which are utilised to wrap the beans in. Now we're at the stage where I actually cut the pods open. As I'm a novice, I only get a stick. I don't actually get one of the big knives, which is a bit disappointing, but probably a little bit safer. So normally they're cut with a knife and the pod is cracked open. And as you can see, it's really quite thick, but I'm going to attempt it with a stick. Here we go. So the husks themselves, we actually place down underneath the trees, and it's important, Susanna actually moves this process all around the farm because the husks will break down and give nutrients to the trees. So they make sure that it's spread throughout the farm and not always in the same position. So another reason why I wasn't trusted with the knife is because if you actually cut through to the beans themselves, you'll actually damage the beans. So we remove the beans. Not doing a great job here. Sorry, Susanna. And the placenta itself, which I've got here, can go in and it ferments quite well, but it does then have to be removed for the drying process. So Susanna actually removes it at this stage so it doesn't go in to ferment with the beans. Now you can either use plantain leaves or banana leaves, and they've poked holes in the base. Poking holes in the base enables the flesh, as it breaks down to a liquid, to actually drain through. This process takes 6 days. The beans will be turned 3 times in those 6 days to ensure that they ferment evenly. So you can see that they've actually wrapped the cocoa beans. So this stage of the process is really essential to determine the end flavour of the chocolate. It's a fermentation stage. Now, after a lot of begging and maybe a little bit of crying, I finally have a machete. You can see all these small flies in the area, which is fantastic, and that's created by the breakdown of the pods. But what they actually do is they will actually pollinate the cocoa flowers. The husks themselves can actually be burnt down and used as soap or laundry detergent. They're actually mixed with a red oil and then they're placed on the fire until it creates an ash. So the oil completely burns off, and that's used quite commonly here in Ghana for both a laundry soap and a soap for your body. After 6 days of fermentation, the beans are then dried. So this is day 1 of drying. So any membranes or placentas that haven't been removed during the picking process at the start of the fermentation is now removed at this stage. So the drying process can take between 7 and 14 days depending on weather. They are covered at night. As soon as the sun goes down, they'll actually roll this back and then they'll cover it with plastic. They also do this if it starts raining. So the drying period will extend if there is rain. So here we have the beans after 3 days of drying. Now, how to determine whether they're dry enough? They listen to the sound. They make a lot more noise when they're drier. Another test is to pick them up and squeeze them in your hand. If they stick to your hand, it means they've still got too much moisture and they're not dry enough. So you can see that they're sticking, and we know that because they've only been drying for 3 days. These beans are now 6 days old, and you can see that the sound gets louder the drier that they get. And when I pick them up in my hand, they don't stick at all, which tells me that they're quite dry. These probably need another 2 days before they're ready to be bagged.
You are welcome to the drying side. And then with Ghana, we rely on the solar, that's the sun, to dry our cocoa bean. And then the drying of the cocoa takes 7 to 14 days depending on the weather. If you are in the dry season, drying of the bean is faster. In the rainy season, as you can see, the weather is a bit down. When it's about raining, we have to cover it up, and then we put a roofing sheet on top to prevent it from getting wet. Otherwise, they'll go moldy. If the beans are not well fermented, you end up having a lot of purple beans. And I know that purple beans are not needed in the chocolate companies, okay? And then when the beans are over fermented, based on sensory analysis or evaluation, we realize that you get these off flavors. It's a bit astringent. It bites you, okay? The bitterness is very high. You need to add a lot of sugar, and even with that, you wouldn't be able to correct it. But when you ferment for the 6 days and then 10 every 2 days, you end up having, you know, the standard or the correct bean that we need.
Now I'm here in a PC shed. Now this is a place where the farmers will bring their cocoa to get it weighed, so they don't need to have exactly 64 kilograms, which is what fits in one of these sacks. They can bring very small quantities. Now I've got some dried cocoa beans here ready to be weighed. For sustainable and traceable cocoa beans, we actually have a log here. Now when the farmers bring in their cocoa, they actually register it in this logbook, so it tells us how much cocoa they actually brought and what date it was brought in and the name of the farmer. That gives full traceability to be able to track back all the cocoa beans to the actual farmer. So here we have some fully dried beans that have been dried for 7 to 14 days, and we can hear the sound of the beans they make when they're completely dry. Cocoa at this stage has been sewn up and it's actually stamped for traceability purposes. So Barry Callebaut knows where every single cocoa bean has come from, and they can trace each cocoa bean back to the individual farmers. The 64 kilogram bag of cocoa is now ready to go on the truck. It's going to go to the Barry Callebaut warehouse where it's going to be graded and then delivered to the Ghana Cocoa Board. So here I am surrounded by cocoa. So the cocoa bags have actually been set up like this to enable the assessor that is sent out by the Ghana Cocoa Board, who will come in and assess the cocoa. So it's here set up so they can access all sides of the jute sack. The global demand for chocolate is at an all-time high, which brings with it the need to protect and nurture this industry. Next time you open a bag of chocolate, you'll have a better understanding now of the work involved in creating it. If you enjoyed that episode, you will love my channel. Subscribe today for even more tutorials on chocolate and baking. Best of all, it's free, so get on it.